Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Church Nerd Online. This is one of the few videos I've done so far. I've not done many, but I wanted to get something out there. It's been months since I've put anything out under the Church Nerd, and it's breaking my heart. And so the best way for me to jump out of a slump of not doing anything is to just rip the Band-Aid off and put something out there. And so I'm responding to this post that a friend of mine screen grabbed off Facebook and sent it to me. There's a lot to unpack here. So without getting too far into it, here's the post. It's a quote from Paul Washer saying, "Men, if you ever get in touch with your feminine side, crucify it." Well, that's awful. And so before we get farther into this conversation, who is Paul Washer? Should I be aware of who he is? I don't know who he is, but apparently, according to Wikipedia, Paul Washer is a Calvinist, has a Calvinist theology affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention. So I'm guessing he's a Presbyterian Baptist? I don't know. I didn't know there were Calvinist Southern Baptists. Apparently, if there are, I'm woefully unaware, but it's the first I've ever heard of it. It also says he is sometimes identified as part of the New Calvinist movement, but sometimes has expressed concerns about this movement. If you want to know more about Mr. Washer, you can check him out on Wikipedia and see his resume, his books he's written and whatnot. But I gotta say, Mr. Washer, your statement is awful. First of all, let's talk about, gender roles and traits. There are, identified patterns of activities and chores and roles and jobs and interests and hobbies and ways of going about things that have been typically identified with men and women as masculine and feminine. And to say that something is feminine or is masculine robs the other gender of trying to express interest in something or to fulfill a interest or whatever. Is it feminine that I do most all the cooking in our household? Some would say yes. However, it's a great de-stressor for me. I really enjoy doing it. I'm pretty good at it. Also, the fact that that takes that responsibility off of my wife is greatly appreciated by her because she can tend to lots of other things that she is better suited for. Not as a woman, but as an individual. Because yes, what I'm trying to break down is to say, if you have a feminine side or a masculine side, and you have tendencies toward this, towards that, they're just tendencies or interests or ways of doing things because we're all people. They are person sides and person sides. Do I have a feminine side because I like to do this or to do that? Yeah, sure, fine, whatever. But you know what? It's me. That's my life. That's how I like doing it. Is my daughter masculine because she really likes climbing on top of excavators and things when we go to those big shows for where they bring in trucks and movers and all these kinds of cool things, and you get to sit in the seat and blow the horn? She loves that stuff. Does that make her a masculine little girl? No, she's a person who thinks something is cool, and so she's loving into it. She's living into it. The fact that she takes recyclable things like paper towel rolls and plastic bottles and tape and markers and paper and makes these creations and says, Daddy, I made you a telephone, or Daddy, I made you a this, and makes these creations, as she calls them. Does that make her less feminine because she likes, doing engineering, essentially? No, it doesn't. It just means she's interested in the world and wants to explore something that she finds cool. So let's just stop saying, oh, well, if you are a man who wants to weep at a movie, you're being in touch with your feminine side. No, you're a human who is expressing emotion. And so, Mr. Washer, you're basic. But also, let's talk about what he says to do with it. So, if you are in touch with your feminine side, we should get rid of that because you can't live into that. That's not how you should be. I say so. How you should be. You should crucify it. Whoa, dude. Whoa. Odd choice of words for a Christian audience. Who was crucified? Well, famously, Jesus. And it was an amazing act of love and self-sacrifice that Christ died on the cross. There are crosses on the backs of the walls of pretty much every church in the world. And so to say we should crucify it, that kind of lifts that up as a pretty cool and groovy thing. What you may have said would be like sacrifice it on a pagan altar or something a little bit more gruesome and a little more finite. Beat it over the head with a shovel. Maybe that's what you were trying to get at, Mr. Washer, but crucify it? Jesus was kind of crucified. So anyway, Mr. Washer, if you have a problem with what I said, come talk to me. But there's more, everyone. I was reading Chase Owen, the guy that commented above. By the way, I do not know who this person is. It's just the response that was screen grabbed and shared with me. I have a feminine side. It's called Emily Owen. Men don't have feminine sides unless they're married. Then their wife is their feminine side. Now, when I first started reading this, the first line, I was like, I thought Chase was trying to, take the mickey out of Paul Washer, saying, I have a feminine side, and I've named it Emily. By the way, it's called Emily. That's a little insensitive. But no, I realized he's actually talking about his spouse. So your feminine side is your spouse, Emily. Men don't have feminine sides unless they're married. That's their feminine side. Well, unless that's a tongue-in-cheek way of shouting out to your wife and then kind of undercutting what Mr. Washer says, I get it. However, I think Chase is maybe agreeing with Mr. Washer, and that's just wrong for all the reasons we talked about a minute ago. No. Own your loves, own your likes, live into them. If you find something that you really enjoy after years of not knowing anything about it and you want to explore it more, do it. If you want to watch, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan movies and cry all the time, do it. If you want to be super stern and like really stoic and do masculine things, then do that. Whatever makes you happy. Within reason. If you don't do anything violent toward others, love others. What Christ asks us to do is to live fully into God. And if you want to abide in Jesus, as Jesus keeps reminding us in the Gospel of John, if you want to abide in love, or if you want to abide with Jesus, to live into Jesus, to love God, then you have to love Jesus. And if you want to love Jesus, you have to love each other, which means sharing this human experience and making it a better place for those around you, and especially those for who come after you. So for this kind of Christianity, this kind of message to be tied to the Christian church in just the most general ways, for people to always assume that if you're a Christian, you're thinking like this, that puts a real bad taste in my mouth, because I'm not going to get painted with the brush that these guys are. Forget these guys. Thanks.